Good evening, I'm James Ezimoha, and you're watching A News. Here are your top stories for tonight. Trump tariffs go through with measures introduced by the U.S. expected to impact global trade. Hungary says it's withdrawing from the International Criminal Court as Israeli leader visits. The first European Union Central Asia Summit kicks off in Uzbekistan. It aims to boost political and economic cooperation. Thank you for joining us. U.S. President Donald Trump's major announcement on reciprocal tariffs is expected to impact global trade. He declared the 2nd of April as the American Liberation Day and announced reciprocal tax hikes on 180 countries in order to boost production at home. Some Americans are worried about the impact on everyday essential items after Trump announced a new set of tariffs that are shaking up global trade.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
U.S. President Donald Trump has unveiled a list of nearly 200 countries which will face new tax duties, with about 60 labelled as worst offenders. Trump says the baseline 10% tariffs are reciprocal tax hikes and claims these nations impose unfair trade barriers on U.S. goods or act against American economic interests. These will take effect after midnight on Saturday, while the higher rates will be starting next Wednesday. The announcement has already raised fears of higher consumer prices. In Washington, D.C., people are concerned about the impact on everyday goods.
It'll be affected big. You see it in the market. You see the groceries are going up. The farmers are catching it. You know, he come and flip the whole system around.
Yeah, I mean, avocados from Mexico is definitely a big one that I think about. I know some of our citrus too are grown internationally as well. Those are two of the big ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But still know that that's going to have an impact on grocery budgets.
It's still really concerning. I'm not sure. I'm not really feeling it at the moment, but when they do, if they do, right? It's gonna be concerning. Things are already rising. There's already inflation and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really want there to be other price hikes. It already kind of sucks to with the amount of income that I make to have to deal with that.
From today, all foreign-made automobiles will be charged a 25% tariff. Chinese imports will face a 54% tax, an increase from previous rates, while the European Union and Japan will see tariffs of 20% and 24% respectively. While Canada and Mexico are absent from the new tariffs, existing trade measures tied to border security and fentanyl remain in place. These sweeping tax increases mark a sharp reversal from decades of trade liberalisation and are likely to trigger retaliatory measures from US trading partners. As these duties take effect, consumers and businesses alike are bracing for the economic impact.
Wall Street opened sharply lower as President Trump's new tariffs triggered fears of an escalating trade war. Major indexes plunged, with technology stocks leading the losses. Investors are now concerned about the potential for a global recession. The Dow Jones lost over 1,000 points, while the S&P 500 and Nasdaq also dropped significantly. Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia saw heavy losses due to the tariffs, especially those impacting China. Global stocks also fell, with investors flocking to safer assets like government bonds and gold. U.S. President Donald Trump's new tariffs have sparked a global backlash, with world leaders and rivals warning of economic fallout. Markets tumble as trade tensions escalate.
U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a 10% minimum tariff on most U.S. imports is escalating a global trade war that could fuel inflation and slow economic growth, according to experts. Despite the UK receiving the lowest levy rate, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer warns that tax hikes will still impact Britain.
Clearly, there will be an economic impact from the decisions that the US has taken, both here and globally. But I want to be crystal clear. We are prepared. Nobody wins in a trade war. That is not in our national interest. We have a fair and balanced trade relationship with the US. Negotiations on an economic prosperity deal, one that strengthens our existing trading relationship, they continue, and we will fight for the best deal for Britain.
The European Union will be charged a 20% rate for its goods. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, speaking at the EU Central Asia Summit in Uzbekistan, condemned the move, warning that countermeasures if negotiations fail.
President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice. Let's be clear-eyed about the immense consequences. The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism. I know that many of you feel let down by our oldest ally. Yes, we must brace for the impact that this will inevitably have. Europe has everything it needs to make it through the storm. We are in this together. If you take on one of us, you take on all of us. So we will stand together and stand up for each other. Our unity is our strength.
Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has talks planned with businesses affected by the tax hikes, with wine and spirits exports expected to drop by at least 20%. China is calling for an immediate cancellation of its 50% levy on its good exported to the U.S., as Beijing says the move will have a huge impact on international supply chains. South Korea is facing a 25% tariff on auto exports and is concerned about its $34.7 billion U.S. auto trade business. And Japan has deemed the 24% tax hikes as extremely regrettable, with markets reacting negatively as the Nikkei fell to an 8-month low and U.S. stocks lost nearly $5 trillion since February.
China is facing an economic battle after the U.S. imposed a 34% tariff on its goods. In response, Beijing promises strong countermeasures, including tariff hikes, export controls, and WTO legal challenges. With the yuan under pressure, the People's Bank of China is managing exchange rates to fend off speculation. Let's hear from our correspondent, Manu Makdum, about the latest updates.
China is bracing for a full-scale economic battle after the U.S. imposed 34% retaliatory tariffs on Chinese goods, further escalating trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. As a response, Beijing has vowed its own strong countermeasures, including potential tariff hike, export control, and legal action with the WTO. At the same time, Beijing is scrambling to stabilize the yuan as it faces depreciation pressure due to market uncertainty. The People's Bank of China has also intervened, tightening offshore liquidity and managing the current exchange rate. Beijing has also reaffirmed its defensive stance by blocking domestic firms from investing in U.S. companies and assets in an effort to curb capital outflow and strengthen its economic leverage. With neither side willing to back down, the U.S.-China trade conflict is set to disrupt the global supply chain, financial markets, and economic stability for the foreseeable future. Manu Makdum, A News, Beijing, China.
A new wave of tariffs from President Donald Trump has escalated global trade tensions, shaking financial markets and raising alarms over economic fallout. Experts warn the move could disrupt both the U.S. and global economies.
There are fears of inflation and economic slowdown globally. It's after US President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on all imported goods and higher rates on dozens of countries. Financial markets reacted swiftly, with US stock futures falling in response to Tuesday's announcement for a baseline of 10% for all imported goods. Analysts are pessimistic, though, about the future.
I mean, so if I think we're going to apply it against a broad swath of countries on everything we import, I mean, I think, all products could get more expensive. I mean, I think the case with Taiwan is that we import a number of computer chips from them. And so, downstream from that is if computer chips become more expensive, then, perhaps personal computers become more expensive. Perhaps companies that rely on large services to conduct business, like Netflix or, places that are building large service farms, maybe it'll get more expensive for, them to sort of produce their output. And so I think it's somewhat across the board.
Experts warn that the move could disrupt global economies, supply chains, and increase costs across multiple industries.
We should be very concerned. The last time trade war on this scale has happened was in 1930s. Exactly in 1930, it was Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and it led to a global recession worldwide. And if this trade war escalates, we could see a slowdown of the global economy on the scale of a global financial crisis of 2014 and possibly deeper. And this is the largest threat, which would affect the whole world. There might be some industries that would benefit from these tariffs in the US. However, it is well known that tariffs are not the best tool of industrial policy. It will immediately lead to an increase in consumer prices in the US. It could lead to overall slowdown of American economy. Moreover, many of those tariffs, they are imposed on parts and components, on inputs, which are used in production of American goods. So the effect on many industries, such as car manufacturing, could be the opposite. It would make goods produced in the US more expensive and therefore less competitive on international markets and less affordable in the domestic American market.
The long-term impact of Trump's tariffs could ripple through to everyone's pockets around the world, significantly affecting consumers and businesses alike.
Foreign ministers from NATO countries gathered in Brussels for crucial talks aimed at growing tensions between the US and Europe. Disagreements on defense spending and the alliance's future are at the forefront of discussions. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has urged both the US and Europe to avoid acting alone on security issues, emphasizing the need for unity. The meeting comes amid increasing concerns over US commitment to NATO. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that all NATO members should commit to spending at least 5% of their GDP on defense, a sharp increase from the current 2% target. Some European countries like Germany and Britain have already pledged to increase defense spending. European Union defense ministers gather for an informal meeting in Warsaw, Poland. Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov and NATO's Deputy Secretary General Radmila Shekarinska are participating. They will all be discussing an initiative by the EU's Vice President Kaja Kallas to boost military assistance to Ukraine. The ministers are expected to lay the groundwork for the next EU Foreign Affairs Council meeting on security issues scheduled for the 14th of April. And more on this subject, and as well as today's NATO's foreign ministers gathering. Joining us live from Kyiv, Ukraine, is Colonel Andrei Ordinovich, retired from the armed forces of Ukraine after 42 years of military service. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ukraine's situation is bad, but how bad is it actually? And what role NATO could play in assisting a proposed European-led stabilization mission to guarantee a peace deal in Ukraine? How viable is this whole idea?
I could not completely agree with the situation when in our country situation is very bad. I would say the situation under full control of Ukrainian government, political military leadership. The NATO is playing crucial role in supporting us based on consultation, strategic dialogue, and other means. First of all, we do have so-called NATO security assistance and training mission, which are dealing with the training and better coordination of security assistance. And we hope that European-led stabilization forces would play the crucial role in keeping and preventing Russian for further armed escalation when, to some extent, ceasefire or armies would be reached. I would like also to mention that for Ukraine, we do not have any other option as to have some kind of collective defense. If collective defense as a NATO is right now close to us for some political reason, I would say we could have a selective collective defense. It is a coalition of willing nations. And third option could be on the table. It is give back our nuclear status and long-range capabilities in order to have deterrence and defense missions in place.
Thank you very much. Russia claimed to have advanced on battlefield, namely in Donetsk, and Kyiv Vladimir Putin's envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, is set to meet U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff in Washington, D.C. What are the next concessions that Russia aims to extract from Washington?
I believe which negotiation which are going on between two sides, I mean Ukrainian and US and Russian and US, it is good sign to find out some compromise on the current situation what we are facing for. First of all, even for the last 3 years of full-scale invasion, Russia be able only to occupy 18% of our territory. We are doing our best with the total forces. It means security and defense forces in place, trying to prevail this kind of invasion. And for what is the most disturbing us, it is for current time after when negotiations started, it is a massive UAV application as well as glided bombs. But for the last 3 days, the numbers of this application decreased radically from 150, 200 Shaheds on daily basis up to right now, like for today, at 39. But the situation under full control.
Thank you, Mr. Andrei Ordinovich. Thank you for sharing your insight. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has announced his country's decision to leave the International Criminal Court. Orban blamed the politicization of the International Tribunal, citing its treatment of Israel as reasons for its move.
The Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, while receiving his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu in Budapest on Thursday, announced he had made moves to withdraw his country from the ICC. Netanyahu arrived on a 4-day visit to the Central European country in defiance of an ICC warrant issued for his arrests. Orban strongly defended his actions, saying that the former International Judicial Forum is now being controlled by political means, which his country does not wish to take part in.
Nekünk fontos. Én voltam az a miniszterelnök, aki aláírtam a I was that Prime Minister who signed the document to join the International Criminal Court in 2000, and I was the one who signed the document to leaving it in the past few days. Because Hungary, the Hungarian government, decided that we would leave it. The reason is that it has become our conviction that it has become a political court, so in recent years it has become not a neutral, legal court, but a political court.
Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu thanked the Prime Minister at a joint press briefing for the bold move of standing with him at the UN and now the ICC.
You stand with us at the EU, you stand with us at the UN, and you've just taken a bold and principled position on the ICC, and I thank you, Victor. This is not only important for us, it's important for all democracies. It's important to stand up to this corrupt organization that has equated a democracy that is challenged for its very existence by the most horrific terroristic powers on earth. But the ICC directs its actions against us. Fighting a just war with just means, and of course not against our tormentors, not really.
ICC judges said when they issued the warrant that there were reasonable grounds to believe Netanyahu and his former defense chief were criminally responsible for acts including murder, persecution, and starvation as weapons of war. This is Netanyahu's second visit abroad since the ICC's issuance of an arrest warrant for him. He had earlier visited President Donald Trump at the White House in February.
In French Polynesia, the Tavini Huiratira political party is set to convene its annual congress on Saturday. The gathering will serve as a platform to review the party's achievements over the past year and outline its vision for its future. Key discussions will center on the progress made since the party took office, the municipal elections scheduled for next year, and the ongoing debate over the territory's sovereignty. A major highlight of the Congress will be the proposed draft constitution of the Federal Republic of Maui Nui. It is seen as a crucial step in the decolonization process initiated at the United Nations in 2023. At the COP29 in Baku, a new chapter in climate finance began with the bold decision to triple the $100 billion climate finance goal, which was an historic milestone. At the Petersburg Climate Dialogue, the European Commissioner Wojciech stressed the lasting importance of the Paris Agreement. He also highlighted the next climate change summit as a crucial opportunity to strengthen commitments and advance the net zero transition.
10 years ago, you would almost forget, but it was only 10 years ago that we were witnessing the signing of the Paris Agreement. And that was the big moment which fundamentally shifted our approach to tackle climate change. And despite everything that has happened, Paris, in my view, continues to be more important than ever. It is the foundation on which all our actions are being built. And today we have a clear goal as well, to keep the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees within reach. And as you know, at COP28, we made a landmark decision to begin transitioning away from fossil fuels. And that truly was a game-changing moment in our fight against climate change. And then at COP29, we ushered a new era for climate finance with the historic decision, not easy, but still historic decision, to triple the 100 billion climate finance goal. So that, of course, puts the question on the table, what does COP30 represent? What is the goal we're working towards? COP30 is our chance and our opportunity to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to fully implement the Paris Agreement and building on the successes of COP28 and COP29. And COP30, of course, will very clearly be the moment where we showcase our ambitious nationally determined contributions, our NDCs, which was, of course, also the buzzword throughout this conference. And we've already succeeded in reducing more than a degree of global warming since Paris, but clearly we're late in the game, and even though we have made progress, this is not enough, and that is why it is so important that we keep on this trajectory. I'm convinced that if we manage to succeed and if we see more rather than less multilateralism at COP30, we will send a very strong signal to the real economy that the transition to a net zero world is not just possible, but actually it is fully underway.
The first European Union Central Asia Summit is taking place in Samarkand in Uzbekistan, aiming to boost political and economic cooperation. European Union leaders, including European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa, have been hosted by the Uzbek President. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan are also joining the gathering. At the same time, the Samarkand International Climate Forum is taking place, where Costa and von der Leyen will discuss climate change and sustainable development. This highlights Uzbekistan's role as a bridge between Europe and Central Asia. Following the historic opening of the first ever summit between the European Union and Central Asia, leaders have already held a series of bilateral talks. The upcoming official meeting will focus on trade, green energy and security. Fariza Kalimuzina has more from Almaty.
The two-day summit in Uzbekistan is being called historic, as it's the first time the leaders of the 5 Central Asian countries and the European Union meet in this format. The official meeting is set for tomorrow, the 4th of April, but today the presidents and European Union's representatives held a series of bilateral talks. The summit's agenda focuses on crucial issues such as trade, investment, green energy, and the mining and processing of minerals. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke about these key topics in an interview with Uzbek media. One of the major announcements expected from this summit is the launch of a strategic partnership between the European Union and the Central Asian nations. Europe is also preparing to unveil a major investment package for the region, with priority areas including transport, natural resources, electricity transmission, and digitalization. Along with that, security cooperation is on the table, particularly on issues like counterterrorism and tackling illegal migration. A standout project is the Green Strategic Corridor, which would link Europe and Central Asia via the Caspian and Black Seas. In an interview with Euronews yesterday, Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev revealed that trade between Central Asia and the European Union has surged fourfold over the past 7 years, reaching 54 billion euros. The European Union is now a major trade partner for the region, accounting for more than 40% of investments in Central Asia. This summit is also taking place amid growing tensions between Europe and the United States over security concerns and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Europe has been working to reduce its reliance on Russian energy. Experts say Brussels is now looking to shift the region's geopolitical alignment, and Central Asian countries appear open to that change. Just last October, Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev emphasized the country's readiness to expand its export opportunities, especially since 70% of Kazakhstan's oil exports go to the European Union. Finally, it's important to note that the United States, China, and Russia have already held similar high-level Central Asia Plus meetings in recent years, and Germany has hosted its own summit as well. However, Brussels is hoping that this summit marks the start of regular discussions between Europe and Central Asia moving forward. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimuzina, A-News.
Tomorrow, Baku will host the 11th ministerial meeting of the Southern Gas Corridor Advisory Council and the 3rd ministerial meeting of the Green Energy Advisory Council. The event will bring together representatives from 24 countries, including Azerbaijan and the European Union, along with 7 international financial institutions and 42 energy companies. Discussions will focus on the progress and future of the Southern Gas Corridor, green energy projects and energy corridors. Key sessions will include a ministerial session, a plenary on the Southern Gas Corridor, and talks on green energy initiatives. Additionally, separate meetings will be held on regional electricity transmission and offshore wind power development. Documents related to green energy are expected to be signed, and a press conference will conclude the event. The Southern Gas Corridor ministerial meetings have been held annually since 2015. To discuss more on the significance of the Southern Gas Corridor, we have sustainability and energy expert Özgür Güven joining us live from Ankara, Turkey. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good evening.
Talking about the Southern Gas Corridor, how has it contributed to Europe's energy security, and what new developments can we expect from this year's ministerial meeting?
Well, to start with, I mean, Azerbaijan and Turkey relationship has been concrete for the last few decades. Yes, starting with President Aliyev's so long that one nation, two states initiative. And I think this time again, Azerbaijan and Turkey will hold on its shoulders a huge project, the Southern Gas Pipeline project, to provide the European Union, I mean, on its risk these days, especially what's happening with the dispute between Russia and Ukraine, and the sources of European Union's whole natural gas. I mean, I think the Caspian Sea gas will be the best alternative for all. So I think this is the right moment to act on this.
Thank you. With growing global emphasis on renewable energy, how does the Southern Gas Corridor fit into the broader transition toward green energy?
Well, to start with, I mean, if we consider natural gas as the most convenient green energy in terms of fossil fuels, I believe it is. So, to provide the European Union, I mean, the whole European continent, with natural gas from the Caspian Sea, I believe this is the only consistent solution that it is. I mean, you can bring natural gas from the North Africa, you can bring natural gas from the Gulf, you can bring it from the States, you can bring it from everywhere, but none of those other options are going to be through a pipeline. And I believe this is the only prominent solution, therefore, for the European continent as it is to provide the gas from the Caspian Sea.
Thank you for your time. That was Özgür Güven, sustainability and energy expert. The Baku Initiative Group has offered to mediate negotiations between the French government and the Kanak people, emphasizing its commitment to dialogue and peaceful conflict resolution. In a letter to the French Minister of the Overseas, Manuel Valls, BIG Executive Director Abbas Abbasov acknowledged Valls' visit to Kanaki as a positive step, but expressed concerns over France's delayed fulfillment of its obligations, particularly under the 1988 Matignon Agreement. Abbasov highlighted BIG's impartial stance and international experience in decolonization, urging France to accept its mediation to advance result-oriented talks. He assured that BIG would work toward fostering mutual understanding and cooperation in line with international law. Georgia has transferred a 49% stake in the Ankylia deep-sea port to China's communication construction company, a firm under U.S. sanction. Bipartisan U.S. lawmakers have criticized the deal, warning it could boost China's influence in the Black Sea and threaten regional security. Our correspondent Nina Nikolashvili has more.
Bipartisan members of the U.S. Helsinki Commission have raised concerns over Georgia's decision to transfer 49% stake in the strategic Ankylia deep-sea port to China Communication Construction Company, a state-owned firm under the U.S. sanctions. In a joint statement, the lawmakers have criticized the Georgian government for engaging with a company they say has a track record for using infrastructure projects to expand China's geopolitical influence. They warned that China's growing role in Black Sea region, particularly alongside with Russia, could undermine security and restrict free trade. Chinese Communist Party is #1 financier of Russia's military might. The U.S. Ambassador Robin Dunnigan previously stated, questioning why would Georgia want to deepen economic ties with an ally of its occupier. While the U.S. Acknowledges Georgia's sovereign right to choose the investor, the lawmakers urge a reassessment, fearing for the need of fair and transparent investment deals. Meanwhile, Beijing have rejected this criticism, calling the U.S. concerns absurd. With strategic infrastructure at stake, the nuclear deal is another test of Georgia's balancing act between East and West. This is Nina Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, News.
Iran and Afghanistan are planning to open new consulates in each other's countries to strengthen diplomatic ties and boost bilateral trade. Meanwhile, the Taliban are seeking improved relations with the Trump administration. The spokesperson for Afghanistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs told A News that they hope to open a new chapter in U.S.-Taliban relations. Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
The governor of South Khorasan province in Iran has announced ongoing efforts to establish an Iranian consulate in Farah province of Afghanistan, along with an Afghan consulate in Virjan, Iran. This initiative aims to strengthen trade and economic relations between the two neighboring nations. The governor emphasized that these consulates would not only enhance bilateral ties, but also foster cooperation in various sectors. The proposed consulates are expected to simplify administrative processes, facilitate cross-border movements, and boost regional commerce. Meanwhile, CNN reports that the Taliban has ramped up its efforts to win favor with the Trump administration, seemingly seeing an opportunity to re-establish official ties and a presence in the United States. The Taliban has proposed opening an office in the U.S. to address issues related to the Afghan community, suggesting it could be located outside of Washington and would not necessarily serve as an embassy. Additionally, the group has floated the idea of the U.S. recognizing its rule as Afghanistan's legitimate government. Speaking to A News, Afghanistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Abdul Kahar Balkhi stated that Afghanistan seeks a positive working relationship with the U.S. based on mutual understanding. He also expressed hope that the Trump administration would open a new chapter in U.S.-Afghanistan relations. The Taliban has secured diplomatic postings worldwide, deploying representatives to staff them. While no country has formally recognized the group as Afghanistan's legitimate government, it has made notable diplomatic inroads. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
In a significant cultural move, the ruling Justice and Development Party in Turkey has taken steps to declare the 21st of March an official public holiday under the name Novruz holiday. The move is set to align Turkey with other Turkic nations that already recognize this traditional festival as a public holiday.
Turkish ruling Justice and Development Party has initiated efforts to declare March the 21st as an official public holiday in Turkey under the name Novruz holiday. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan had previously announced during Novruz celebrations that the government planned to recognize the traditional festival as an official holiday. Now the AK party has begun the necessary legislative steps to implement this decision. According to reports from Cumhuriyet newspaper, the initiative aims to elevate Novruz beyond Turkey, reinforcing its status as a shared cultural celebration among Turkic nations. Currently, countries such as Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan already recognize Novruz as an official public holiday. The move is expected to further integrate Turkey with other Turkic states, promoting the festival as a unifying tradition for the entire region. The legislative process will be overseen by Kursat Zorlu, the AK party's deputy chairman responsible for relations with Turkic states. The legislative and diplomatic groundwork is set to begin soon, paving the way for Turkey to join its neighbors in officially recognizing March the 21st as a national holiday.
Hoş geldin, sefa geldin diyor.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.